The UK parliamentary inquiry has been launched into the royal family's property portfolio, with revelations that Royal Lodge, where the King's disgraced brother, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, resided, was dilapidated and in need of repairs.
Let me start with a very simple question. How does someone live in a 30-room royal mansion for 22 years, pay no rent at all, promise to maintain it, and never once have anyone come by to check on the condition of the property? Because that is exactly what has now come to light about Royal Lodge, the former home of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and it raises some very uncomfortable questions about who was watching the store and who was not. Royal Lodge sits on the Windsor estate, and it is not a small cottage tucked away in the trees. It is a sprawling, historic property with 30 rooms, landscaped grounds, and a long history. When Andrew moved in back in 2003, the deal he signed with Crown Estate was highly unusual, even by royal standards. Under the terms of that lease, Andrew did not pay rent, not a penny. Instead, he agreed to pay a large upfront sum to refurbish the property and then keep it in good condition for the duration of the lease, which runs for 75 years.
Good evening to you, Girish. Well, primarily the rental agreement between the Crown Estate and former Prince Andrew. Now, there was public outrage when it was revealed that Andrew was paying what's called a peppercorn rent, so ostensibly nothing.
The figure most often quoted for those initial repairs is around £8 million. In return, the Crown Estate included very specific conditions. The interior of the house was meant to be repainted every 7 years. The gardens and grounds were to be properly maintained. No new walls, gates, fences or windows were allowed without permission. And crucially, Crown Estate officials had the right to enter the property at reasonable times to make sure all of this was being done. On paper, it sounds strict. In practice, it turns out none of it was enforced. According to a Freedom of Information request revealed by the Daily Mail, not a single Crown Estate official inspected Royal Lodge in the entire 22 years Andrew lived there. Not once. No routine checks, no scheduled visits, no quiet walkthrough to make sure the place was being looked after.
To do with the rental agreement between Andrew, many people here, you speak to people on the street, they were completely disgusted by the fact that the former Prince was living a life of lavish luxury and not paying for it.
This detail alone has set alarm bells ringing, because the lease explicitly allowed inspections, provided reasonable notice was given. Yet they simply never happened. What makes this even more striking is that the Crown Estate had previously told Parliament that inspections were carried out on a so-called need-only basis. In a briefing sent to the House of Commons Public Accounts Committee, the Crown Estate's chief executive said this was standard industry practice and a way to ensure effective use of public money. But the Freedom of Information request shows that in this case, need apparently never arose. Not once in more than 2 decades. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams has been blunt about how this looks. He said there is little doubt that the absence of inspections will be seen as yet another example of a sweetheart deal between Andrew and the Crown Estate, particularly given the number of high-profile controversies Andrew has been involved in over the years. Those controversies, of course, include his long-standing association with Jeffrey Epstein, which has cast a shadow over every aspect of his public life.
It is that one former royal member, one former prince, that most people we've spoken to said they do not feel should be welcome to this part of Norfolk.
As outrage grew over those links, no one thought to take a closer look at the condition of a taxpayer-linked property he was occupying rent-free. It was only after Andrew announced he would be leaving Royal Lodge that the Crown Estate finally inspected the property. When they did, the findings were not encouraging. The house was described as being in a dilapidated state, with significant repairs needed. So significant, in fact, that the compensation Andrew was due to receive for giving up the lease early, reportedly close to £500,000, is now expected to be wiped out entirely by the cost of putting the property right. In other words, the money he was meant to walk away with is likely to be swallowed up by years of deferred maintenance. All of this is unfolding against the backdrop of Andrew's total fall from grace. He has, as we know, been stripped of all royal titles, including the title of Prince, following the publication of leaked emails that contradicted his claims in the BBC Newsnight interview about when he cut ties with Epstein.
Well, it's not yet clear whether Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor will give evidence in any inquiry or probe conducted by MPs in the Public Accounts Committee.
Andrew continues to deny all allegations of wrongdoing. The latest reports suggest he will soon move to a far quieter existence on the King's private Sandringham estate, possibly by Easter, at a location that has not been publicly disclosed. But the consequences of this Royal Lodge revelation are not stopping with Andrew. Members of Parliament are now preparing to widen their focus. The Public Accounts Committee is expected to launch a broader probe into royal properties managed by the Crown Estate, looking closely at whether taxpayers have received proper value for money. This is a key detail because the Crown Estate is not a government department, but it does manage assets on behalf of the public. Its profits are returned to the Treasury and help fund the sovereign grant, which pays for official royal duties and the upkeep of official residencies. The Crown Estate does not own Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, but it does oversee several royal homes, including Royal Lodge, Bagshot Park, Forest Lodge, and Thatched House Lodge in Richmond. And this is where things could become uncomfortable for more than one member of the royal family. Experts are warning that this investigation could open the door to long-hidden arrangements, lifetime leases, peppercorn rents, no inspection policies, deals struck decades ago that would never be approved under today's standards. Some have described it as the opening of Pandora's box. The probe is expected to look at Forest Lodge, the new family home of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The Crown Estate has said they are paying market rent, though no figures have been released.
No, this is a lovely peaceful area. His reputation now is tarnished, and I don't think it's right. This is where the royals come for Christmas. It's and they come throughout the year, and I don't think people local really want to see him here.
It will also examine Bagshot Park, the vast Surrey mansion occupied by Prince Edward and Sophie. In 2007, they paid around £5 million up front for the 120-room property and have effectively lived rent-free since, under a deal that bears striking similarities to Andrew's. Richard Fitzwilliams has pointed out that these older arrangements are simply not the kind of deals the Crown Estate would strike today. He believes that when MPs examine them later this year, critics of the monarchy will argue that royal tenants have been given undue preference at the taxpayer's expense. And once that argument takes hold, it becomes very hard to put back in the box. Historically, the rents paid by royals living in palace apartments have rarely been disclosed. One of the few exceptions was the Kensington Palace apartment occupied by Prince Michael of Kent and his wife, where documents showed an index-linked rent of around £120,000 a year, agreed back in 2010. By contrast, a Crown Estate report published after the Royal Lodge outcry revealed that Princess Alexandra's rent in Richmond Park was around £225 a month. These figures, placed side by side, are already causing concern. So while Royal Lodge may have been the starting point, it is increasingly clear that it will not be the end of this story. The focus has shifted from one disgraced former duke to the entire system that allowed such arrangements to exist without scrutiny for so long. Before I go, I want to hear what you think. Should royal property deals be fully transparent, or is there still a case for privacy when it comes to how the family lives? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay up to date on the latest royal developments, make sure you're subscribed. Thank you for watching.